Hello, guys. It's let's see, Sunday the 4th of August evening here in the UK. I'm recording the episode that we called "Who's the Prettiest of Them All," and this is where we're going to be comparing all the different teams that, personally, I think are going to be in competition for top four spots in Serie A. Here we have one, two, three, four, five, six teams competing for four positions. So I'm going to try and give you a prediction as well. One of the things I wanted to do, however, to start with, is to just talk about the last episode, episode 59 of Milanista 360. We've got some really good comments on it, and I think we should mention them. First of all, Eric McDonald 2749. You say good podcast, guys, and I want to say thank you for that, Eric. Glad you think so. I understand you and many Milan fans' frustrations with our management, but the reality is no one else was willing to put their money where their mouth was when it came to buying us, which I think is fair enough. PIF was never a reality. No investment firm is going to invest in Serie A, where there is very little revenue that the league generates, and is predominantly down to how politics and antiquated ideas work in Italy. Same goes for youth opportunities, where it's always been the case. Until the mindset changes in Italy regarding the league and how young players are integrated, we will see this issue continue. I can't disagree with you on that either. It's not Italy's ability to produce good youth, and you point out the under 17s and 19 success. And so, again, I agree, we do have the talent. The problem is not getting them into the first teams. Yes. Regarding the Mercato, would I like the players quicker? He says yes. But the reality is there was two global cup competitions played during the summer and players all over the place. And Milan, like most other Serie A clubs, can't overpay for players. The money has to come from somewhere. It's either capital spend or player sales. Then it's pure capital spend. Yeah, this year we haven't really sold players. I guess you could say CDK is one player that we sold, but none of the big signings. Like last year, we had a record sale in Tonali that was used to fund a lot of the transfer. So Eric says it's all budgeted transfers without any sales required. No other team in Serie A can do that as they don't make the revenue. Fans expecting Milan to be signing guys at 40 to 50 million or top players is just unrealistic. None of our rivals in Serie A are doing that. Now, on this point, I say to you, does this mean, therefore, that to be what we call a realistic Milanista, you just have to accept what's happening? Um, I think it's very hard for a lot of people to do that. It's very painful for a lot of Milanisti to do that because we don't see ourselves that way. But I am a realistic Milanista, and I have to say, I understand that current ownership, despite being a hedge fund manager or of investment management firm that has several billions in um, portfolio companies, they don't necessarily mean that they're going to splash cash in anything. They don't splash cash; they are there to make money. Then Eric makes a really good point, which is Milan have only made profit in the past two seasons after nearly 20 years in the red. And then he says we need to stay within the parameters of FFP as we can't go 60 to 70 million down as we have FFP commitments until 2026. Now, I didn't know that, so thank you for that education. We had massive player turnover last year and it was required. We literally need four players this year, and if we manage to keep our key stars, then there is no reason this club can't challenge Inter. I think this is where I disagree with you. I think the four players we needed, if there were four players to really strengthen this team, we would need a right back, we would need a centre back, we would need a striker of top quality, and potentially a did I say right back already? I think I did, and attack essentially a CDM as well, right? So I don't know. I don't know. So the way I see it, I don't think it's possible for Milan to actually challenge Inter this year. Even if we get Fofana, let's say, what was the other players? Well, obviously we've got Morata. We're not going to get Xerxes. You make a point about you know, Milan not signing players that are worth 40 to 50 million. Okay, let's say we can't sign players like that because of what we are and how we're being run. However, Xerxes was definitely a target for Milan until they realized that the agent wanted a massive fee. That's when they had to look elsewhere. Is Morata a fit replacement, a good replacement? I think Morata is a decent replacement, don't get me wrong, but I would have liked Morata, for example, with Xerxes, or Xerxes with Abraham, or Xerxes with Lukaku. That's kind of what I would have liked there. A good CDM, a great CDM, I think, would probably be a Fafana. Then he could pair up with Benny, and we could do a little bit of damage. A right back, this poor, what was this guy? This Brazilian guy that we're looking at, I don't think is top quality at all. And I live in the UK, and I've watched Tottenham. He's nothing in my mind. And yeah, Pavlovic, I genuinely don't know. I've seen him for the international team. He looks solid. So I hope that he's a better centre back, more of a solid centre back. He looks pretty massive. But who he would be paired with, a lot of rumors in Italy are that actually his pairing is going to be with Tomori and not Gabbia, which is a bit of a strange one. So then you say everyone getting on at Redbird for a lack of transparency is just silly. Forlani has come out publicly and said we don't need to sell players to buy, so we can keep Theo, Mike, etc., and give them significant pay bumps, which again come from our budget. Now, saying that, uh, right, lack of transparency being silly. All right, I think the problem is this: it's not lack of transparency. I think probably Scaroni has been extremely honest with what he has said. That top four is good. He has said that a few rounds in the Champions League or a few rounds in the Europa League would be good enough because that keeps the money coming in. Um, I think the problem is when the owners are saying that we want to win trophies, that we are trying to return Milan to the absolute pinnacle, and the things we are doing are to restore our club to its previous glory. There's no way in the world that the way we're going about the business that we're doing enables that. And I start all the way from the top, the coach. You guys somehow seem to think that Fonseca is capable of bringing great things. I think he's capable of not screwing up as badly as Pioli. That's what I would say. But can he bring Milan a trophy? I'd give us a bit of an outside chance at the Coppa d'Italia. But in terms of Serie A, we're nowhere near the level where we need to be. Nowhere near. And again, that's just my opinion, but I totally appreciate yours. You say we finished last season second place with very little in the way of tactical direction from Pioli. Yes, and last season was a big transitional year for a lot of the clubs. Juventus are playing dead football. Mourinho was at Roma, killing their football as well. Napoli just swapping managers for fun after losing Spalletti, and Atalanta woke up a bit late, but they went and won a Europa League, which is an incredible achievement. So let's have that discussion now. Um, when we look at these teams, we're going to have also a bit of I think, a better idea about this season. So let's just wait for a minute. Now, you want to finish off by saying we never turn our back on the team, regardless of our thoughts about management. Milan is Milan. We support the team and the colours, not players, not legends. They will always come and go, but the colours and the team stay the same. Keep the faith, Forza Milan. I say to you, Forza Milan as well. Obviously, tongue in cheek. Last week, I said, "Are you thinking of supporting Monza if they bring in Maldini? If they bring in, uh, you know, I'm talking about Paolo Maldini because they've already brought in Daniele Maldini." Um, but I have to say, you have to remember that a lot of the fans, especially the older fans, have a little bit of an attachment, or more than a little bit of an attachment, to the legend that is Paolo Maldini, and the way that he was removed has really hurt a lot of people. And being completely honest, some will feel that this ownership needs to be punished for what they have done. And the reality might be that the feeling is resentment, and that might will maybe never go away. Honestly, I think it might never go away, that feeling of resentment. But again, yep, Forza Milan. Let's keep it. Let's keep going. And I really, really am grateful for your comment on here. Now, there's another comment here from someone who was talking a lot during the podcast, and it's Zion Train 7887. You say good podcast, gents. I say thank you very much, Zion. Totally understand the frustration on the slow movement on the mercato. I feel the same, to be honest, but I'm still optimistic about the future and the upcoming season. We're not selling our top players like Theo, Manyan, and Leao, so that's a good start, and it appears that we will push to renew Manyan and Theo this season. Okay, I hope we do as well. So let's be patient and see how the mercato and season plays out. Then we will know for sure what direction we're going, because any failure this season in Cardinale will be under immense pressure to sell the club to more ambitious owners if we don't win any trophies, including Serie A, Coppa d'Italia, UCL, Europa League, etc. The Curva Sud already made a very clear statement at the end of last season that without trophies it will be unacceptable to continue supporting this ownership of Milan. That will be bad business for Cardinale and Redbird, and if the fans revolt and boycott, then the club ownership is in trouble. I highly doubt that they will allow that to happen. Forza Milan. Again, to you, Tryon, um, Zion Train, I should say. Forza Milan, and I like your positivity. I'm definitely not going to wait the whole season. I think it will be clear quite early on the direction of this club. My biggest problem with this ownership, and his part response to Eric as well, is we waited way too long to remove Pioli. It should have been decisive. That Pioli removal should have happened last year, after the first few games when we were really obviously collapsing and the players were not listening to him. That would have shown ambition and that would have shown a drive. But instead, to save a few bob, they carried him going until the end of the season. And we were just embarrassing at the end of the season, and they were allowing it to happen. And that's why the Curva Sud, were not happy, and neither was I. However, again, I repeat, the Curva Sud do not represent me. Um, but I really want to say again, thank you for this thoughtful response. I like your positivity. We need positive fans in the fan base. And then we've got a message from Pixie Yon 4468. Missing the bigger picture. Juventus are starting from zero. They won't be above us. The only challenge is Inter. Conte would never even play Liberali or Camarda against Madrid and co. Okay, so I think this is a great segue to have a look at the team. So let's have a look. So these are the teams that I personally deem as potential competitors. So let's go to the next slide. Let's move straight to the champions, who've now got 2 stars on their badge. These are the players that have come in. Fratesi has now been signed, as well as Correa, it appears, according to this, which is a bit of a strange one. From what I understand from Inter fans, they are not impressed with Correa at all. But the big one really here is Zelinski and Taremi. Taremi coming on a free, as well as Zelinski, as they let their contracts run out. The manager is settled, the squad is settled, they have reinforced. I can't see how this team is beaten. They're just too stable, and I think Taremi and Zelinski definitely tipped them over the edge as Serie A champions. Let's have a look at who they lost. So they got rid of a lot of uh, aging players. So Quadrado left, Sanchez left. Obviously, on this card you see Fratesi has left, but what it was he was on a loan and then he's been signed. So Klaassen has left as well. Stankovic has left. Yeah, I'd say good to get rid of the players that were really just aging, and Arnautovic is not on there, is he? It's a bit strange. Okay, so that's Inter. To me, they're going to be Serie A champions. Roma are to me the jolly in the pack. They are just signed Dovbik, which, having played at Girona and having scored 24 goals in 36 games with 8 assists, he's not a player that I could imagine Roma could sign. They're dangerous this season because De Rossi is their manager, and as we saw last season, he brings a different level of grinta and a different style of football. Should be very interesting to see what they can do with a full preseason. These are their signings. Um, yeah, interesting few signings. Solbakken as well. So, and let's have a look at who they let go of. So they got rid of Rui Patricio. I think the highlights here is Rui Patricio, Renato Sanchez, Llorente's gone, Spinazzola has gone as well. They let him go, and Lukaku has gone as well. So interesting, very very interesting. I don't know the situation actually with Lukaku at the moment. I think he's kind of in limbo. So, but Roma, could they compete for the Serie A title? I say no, but I think they could be very close to top four, if not within it. Right. And then we've got Napoli. The reason I've got this big picture here is because this is their actual best signing. This is a manager that I wanted at Milan, but his wages are just too high. We are not being run in a way that would allow a manager like this to come in with the players that he wants. Now, let's have a look at the players who have gone. So he's lost Zelinski and he's lost Golini. Um, but look at the signings. Buongiorno. He has signed Spinazzola, but I don't think they're finished. I really don't think Napoli are finished. They need to sign more players than this. I saw a rumor the other day that they are looking at Kessie. Now, I hope to God they don't bring Kessie back to Serie A. Kessie within a Napoli team under Conte, I don't even want to think about it. Um, there's also a lot of rumors about Osimhen trying to engineer a move away from the club. Um, but Cavara looks to be definitely staying. So let's have a look at. Let's see how they do. I think the Conte effect is going to be pretty strong. I think this team. It's really hard to know because they spent last season messing around so much with different managers, and the managers they kept bringing in were disastrous. So yeah, Conte is definitely a very good manager who squeezes everything out of his clubs for at least 1 year. So if Napoli push in the way Conte does, top four could definitely be a target for them. Championship winners? No, I don't see it. Then we've got Atalanta. So I put them on here because they are Europa League champions. They, by the end of the season, were playing amazing football, really solid. What he did with Charles de Ketelaere last season, Gasperini, was quite incredible. And I hadn't realized that they'd signed Zaniolo. I think he's on a loan, actually. Um, he's not actually been signed outright. But obviously, they brought in CDK and they paid the fee for him. And that's come to our coffers. And CDK has really been transformed. If you look at the players that have left, I think the biggest shock for me is Miranchuk going to Atlanta. I didn't think he was needed. And the other rumor, of course, is Coop Miners to leave this club. Um, the suitors are potentially Juventus. Now, I think Atalanta, if they set their goals on Serie A, they definitely are good enough to make top four. Definitely. And here we've got Juventus, that I think in this collection of clubs is probably the one that's going to be under the most amount of change. First thing to say is they come from a place where they were not playing football last season, and they haven't been playing football several seasons. They played an ancient style of football that was reliant on a opposition just falling asleep and then them catching you out with a one-off and then defending it. Under Allegri, they were a disastrously awful team, yet they still won a Coppa d'Italia, right? It was boring, but it won them trophies. Thiago Motta is a very ambitious move. It's a obviously, as we know from Bologna, and the reason Bologna is not here is because they're going to be stripped. It's really unfortunate that this also means that their Champions League, they're going to be there as whipping boys. Uh, but Thiago Motta is a great coach, very exciting young coach. The big signings, Keprem Turam and Douglas Luiz. Keprem Turam is the obviously the brother of the Inter player and the son of the legendary Lilian Thuram. So quite incredible family here. And on the players that they released, they've got Alexandro gone to Porto, Keane who's gone to Fiorentina, and the big one, I think, another big one is Rabiot, who they've let go of. Apparently, he's still part of a growth decree. He can still take part of it, and our owners love a growth decree. So I wouldn't be surprised if last minute we end up bringing Rabiot in. Although I don't know what his personal wages are, I think they're potentially quite big. I think Juventus will not make top four this season. I pushed them out of the top four. And then obviously we've got ourselves under this manager Fonseca. Uh, the big signings really are Morata Pavlovic. Nasty also was brought in. Salamakers, of course, has come back, and a bunch of other players have come back as well. But again, by the end of August, so many will be gone. I don't know even on this list how many of these players will be still here. Definitely Morata and Pavlovic, but everyone else there, not entirely sure what will happen to them. On the players who've left the squad, I think the biggest thing here that surprised me, I wasn't aware of, is that we managed to finally shake off Caldara. So well done to ownership for shaking him off and sending him to Modena. I hope he's actually left and not on a loan. I need to check that. Um, yeah, I guess I wouldn't be shocked if he was on a loan either. Okay, now what do I see? Where do I see? I think I see ourselves comfortably in the top four. So this is my prediction for top four this season. I think Inter will be first. I think we will be second. I think third will be Roma, and fourth will be Napoli. Hmm. Actually, I'll change it. Third will be Atalanta. Fourth will be Roma. So Napoli and Juventus are going to be two clubs just missing out. That's what I think this season. I think that finishes the slides. Sorry I couldn't be joined today by my co host. Had a few technical issues. Speak to you soon, guys.